Hi, everybody. This is Kim, and I have with me a good friend of mine, Sylvester. And we wanted to check in with people with the coronavirus, but we really want this conversation to be about more than that. I think you can get all the information you need on coronavirus, COVID-19 by just checking your social media or going on the television, listening to the news. And so we're just going to touch on that, but basically we want to be talking about some other things. Maybe they're on your mind, maybe they're not, but I know that one of the things that Sylvester and I feel strongly on is diversity and inclusion. We wrote a book called Leveraging Diversity at Work. And one of the things that I've been concerned about recently, in addition to, of course, safety, mental health, all of the things that everyone else is already talking about, is the violence that's being perpetrated against Asians in our country because of the coronavirus. And Sylvester, I just wanted to know if you have anything you want to say about that.
Well, yeah. First of all, good morning. I've had that on my mind for the past week, and being someone who's dealt with discrimination and prejudice, it's really a sad time in our country to be Chinese American. There's so many thoughts about Chinese Americans that are going around just with people that I've talked to, and the level of hatred and disdain has grown for that community because of the information people receive regarding the origin of this virus. And it's really began to highlight people's level of sensitivity and awareness as it regards the Chinese community.
Yeah, and I know you're saying Chinese American, and I know that the attitudes are directed towards Chinese Americans, but I feel that there's a lot of fallout for other Asians because many Americans can't distinguish between a Vietnamese American, a Filipino American, a Japanese American. And so I think many of Asian descent are experiencing this kind of violence as if they're the ones who actually created it. I was speaking with a friend of mine in Australia, and interestingly, he told me that in China, the word is that it's possible that Americans created this and planted it in China. So when we start pointing fingers and blaming and lumping a whole group of people together, it really is so damaging. I mean, let's pretend I don't have any idea. It seems like experts. I read an article where someone from the CDC is saying it's very unlikely that this virus was genetically engineered because of certain things that markers that they would look for if it was man-made versus natural evolution. And their conclusion was that they believed, to the best of their scientific knowledge, that this virus just evolved. It was not created. Man-made, genetically engineered, anything like that. But let's just pretend that in China, they find proof that Americans actually did create this and implant it there. Would every American in our country want to be blamed for that? I know.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. My feeling is, being African American, we understand a lot about history. It's no secret that we went through a period of slavery, but spending a lot of time discussing that really does nothing about how we move forward today. And what I'm noticing is that in our society today, with the snippets of media that I've seen, the term Chinese Americans is what people are using. But to your point, you're right. People aren't able to distinguish, but yet because we don't have the level of sensitivity and awareness necessary, we lump all Asians into that category. And that's another one of the um, signs or spotlights that this virus has illuminated for me, is the level of, as I call it, genuine ignorance that we have as it relates to different cultures. And that's one of the problems that I believe we really want to address as we deal with this virus and how we're going to come back from it.
Right. I love the message that this virus is not discriminating against poor people, rich people, old people, young people, black people, white people, brown people, green or purple. It's not discriminating. It is a virus that is attacking everyone indiscriminately. And because of that, I believe that we need to come together and work together to first minimize our risk, and second, rebuild when this risk has passed. And that's the only way we're going to get through it. We're not going to get through it any other way.
Yeah, and I think that is the very reason we need to grow in terms of awareness. We need to grow in terms of sensitivity. Never in my lifetime have I seen the level of importance in understanding cultural awareness and cultural sensitivity be as high as it is now. Um, this virus, this quarantine, has only illuminated that, and it spans across many facets of life. And because people are so conditioned to what they believe and what they hear and their way of life, it's continuing to damage our relationships and our ability to understand and be sensitive to other cultures.
It is. So that's really the main thing I wanted to talk about as it relates to the virus. I'd like to focus on some other things if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Today, I know my Muslim friends, it is the first day of Ramadan, which means there will be a lot of prayers, a lot of sacrifice, and fasting happening during Ramadan. I don't know a lot about it, except that I know that for a month, people that I know who are Muslim will not eat from sunrise to sunset in observance of their traditions. So I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about that, but I wanted to be sure to give a shout out to my Muslim people who are going through coronavirus as well as their fasting period.
Yeah, I was actually speaking to a friend of mine yesterday who happens to be a early childhood educator, and we were just talking about the importance of cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, and inclusion, and we moved to this topic of Ramadan. And as I asked her, what does she know about it? She said, and I quote, "I don't know anything about it, and I really don't care." And that response for me, it kind of jarred me a little bit, because the fact that you are interacting with people, little people, on a daily basis who may be honoring this very holiday period or religious holiday period, and you don't care to know, which means you don't care to respect it. And again, this quarantine for me has really shown the true character of people, but it gives us who are really committed to teaching these principles related to cultural awareness and sensitivity. The backdrop to let people know the importance of understanding holidays and events that people are celebrating, and showing a level of sensitivity and understanding what it means to be involved in those things.
Right, and that kind of brings me to my next question for you, and that was about religion and politics and how we're told don't talk about those things, or certainly don't talk about them when you're with people who think differently than you. I know there's a lot of people talking about politics, but they're gravitating to the people who support their beliefs instead of talking to people with different ones. So, based on what you just said, it sounds like you would be an advocate for talking about difference, and maybe instead of judging that difference, to try to understand it. So I wouldn't ask my Muslim friends, in particular, I'm going to give a shout out to Nazreen Ali. If I were speaking with Nazreen, I wouldn't say, tell me what Ramadan is like for Muslims, because how the heck does she know? She knows her community of Muslims in Orland Park, but even then, she doesn't know what it's like for the next door neighbor to be worrying about are they going to get enough food at the grocery store, and what are they going to cook for dinner after the sun goes down. She doesn't know what's going through the minds of anyone else. So if we're really going to open ourselves up to understanding the experience, we want to talk to people about, hey, are you observing Ramadan? What's it like for you? What does that mean? How is it complicated with this coronavirus isolation that we're going through? But it's asking on an individual basis, not this tell me about all the people that are like you. I would never want to speak for all the white people in the world, God forbid.
It's even during this period of what's being called social distancing, I am fortunate enough to remain in contact with people via technology, and the the whole idea of politics and religion is another facet of culture that has been highlighted to me, because as you know, I am a Christian. The one thing that I've noticed about the Christian church is that they've been greatly impacted by this virus, this quarantine. There is a scripture in the Bible that talks about whether two or three gathered together. So the gathering and assembling of people in the Christian church is very, very important. And the mission of the Christian church is to spread the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. But what I've noticed since this quarantine is that the Christian church is not coming together. They're still trying to maintain their individualism and operate individually as a separate church within the Christian church religion. And in my opinion, this is the ideal time to come together as a culture and support your mission. But yet the Christian church has been taught that this is what we do, and we've gone a step further. We do it in our church. We have our person that represents us, and this is what we do. And I believe it's kind of a spinoff of what we see in politics. A lot of what we're dealing with in politics is still a lot of partisanship. And Politicians are jockeying for positions of credit, uh, demeaning other politicians. When these are the people, this is the culture of people that we are looking to solve this issue, and they can't even come together. So I believe that the subject of politics and religion has always been taboo, but there's no greater time for us to hit the gavel and agree to come together and try to understand what this thing is from all perspectives and work together to solve it.
That's great. I really am with you on that. And probably the next thing I want to mention is, what are your plans for offering classes, coaching, um, conversations, whatever you're thinking about, being able to bring people together in a safe environment? I think that's what people are concerned about: safety, to speak their mind without being criticized or judged or jumped on because they said something wrong. Lord knows, in my work of facilitating these kind of conversations, there's been many a time I've said things that were learning opportunities and learning moments. And so what are your plans for the future as we are able to come out of our social, or I like to think of it more as physical distancing, because we surely can remain social as you and I are doing right now, but the physical distancing that we need to maintain? What are your thoughts?
Um, I believe that it's important to understand that we all are operating in a level of genuine ignorance, and all of us have an opportunity to learn and we're not taking it. So we got to understand that people are going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to make a mistake. Every mistake is not a malicious, intentional mistake. It's just a mistake. And so encouraging people to use the terminology of different as opposed to right and wrong, and not to challenge people from a perspective of you're incorrect or your ways are incorrect, but to listen from a perspective of gathering information objectively and processing it against what you know, and taking time before you respond. Because when you respond immediately, it comes from an emotional place that lacks the processing. And so what I intend to do is spend time on language, mental processing, and objectivity. Before we can move into specific areas, we've got to be able to address those issues, because the mind has been infiltrated for years, and we've got to get it under control before we can have difficult discussions.
Well, it's like I sit here and I think about, I was born to Carl and Nancy Dobb. Those are my parents. They were born to their parents. And when they were being raised, they were taken to their respective Protestant churches. And so when they came together and they created a family with 3 children, we all went to a Protestant church, and that's what we learned. Had I been born to different parents who went to synagogue or who went to mosque or who did no religious instruction whatsoever, I would be different. And it wouldn't be my fault, my blame. It's all part of what you were exposed to as you were younger, as you grew, when you went to school, when you chose your friends, when you went to college. I mean, all your experiences in your life have come together to create the person that you are. So when you have these conversations, one of the things I like to remember is to kind of put on my curiosity hat, especially when I start to think to myself, oh, that's not right. that's my cue to say, wait a minute, why do I think that's not right? Is that not right because I had a Bible in my hand when I was 10 instead of the Quran? I mean, if you were, whatever you were taught as a young person, you believe is absolutely 100% correct. But what if it isn't? And what if you can both be correct? I mean, what if there's not a right and wrong? What if there's 50 shades of gray? And I don't mean that in terms of the book, but you know, there's so many ways to experience the world, to have perspective about what's going on. And my way isn't necessarily right. Of course, it's right for me, but that doesn't make it right for you, and it doesn't make it right for anyone else. So, and for me, I find, and this is my decision, this is the other thing, this is a hard one for me, probably, I'm gonna assume might be a hard one for you, because I believe that this opening up and broadening your perspective and listening to other people adds value to your life. I stand on that. I have to also allow for those people who don't want to open up, those people who want to isolate, and those people who want to just stay with what they know and stay in their little corner of the world. If that's what makes them happy, I have to honor that and say, you know, I get it. I may not understand it from my own experience, but they have the right to do that too. And that's the hard part for me, because I find that in trying to help people understand and accept everyone, I also have the danger of pushing my own agenda, which is exactly what we're trying not to do. So.
Yeah, and I think what you just spoke about is the importance of sensitivity. It's hard to be sensitive about anything that you don't understand. And many people believe that understanding means agreement, which is totally wrong. You can understand something and totally disagree with it. But when you don't understand it, then that impacts your ability to be sensitive. And that's where we have the divide with a lot of people. So I believe it is important to know that how we were raised does impact who we are. And because of that, we have to do what is difficult. Because, you know, as a Christian, we believe all things are possible. And when people say, this is hard for me, it doesn't excuse you doing it. It means it's going to be difficult.
Right.
And so in no way would I say to anyone, don't do this because it's hard. Because developing and growing and nurturing your sensitivity is difficult, which is why you have to be intentional, which is why you have to purposely put yourself in situations that are uncomfortable, that are unfamiliar, but you're going to, but you will learn if you train your mind to open up to receiving the difference in other people, not with judgment, not with right or wrong, but walking into something going, wow, this is different, and just absorbing that to process objectively later. But we do have a problem with gauging things as right or wrong based on our own upbringing. And until we can really intentionally, purposely put ourselves in situations where we don't know, we're unfamiliar, we may be the only in an environment, we're not going to get to the place of total acceptance.
Thank you for that. One of the reasons I had Sylvester on to talk about this particular topic is because he is my category leader at Academy of Choice in the area of diversity coaching. Do you want to talk a little bit about what your plans are for the category of diversity coaching at Academy of Choice?
Wow. And you know, I feel like we've kind of discussed a great deal about what's going to go on at the AOC. I'm very, very passionate about culture and diversity. And it is my goal to impart wisdom to those who are looking to become coaches, specializing in this particular area. And since this recent quarantine and virus, I've thought about how just having a foundation and understanding of culture and diversity will impact coaching, period, but particularly diversity coaches. And so it is my hope that I'll be able to give information and direction to those people that are interested, based on experience, um, based on knowledge, and based on my passion for this topic. And no topic or culture is out of bounds. We'll just have to figure out how to properly prepare people to discuss.
Great, thank you. And the last topic I wanted to talk about, April is Donate Life Awareness Month. And you have a very close tie to that, I know personally, and I'd like to hear your story. But donating life is something that all of us can do right now, today. We can go to our local blood bank and we can give blood, which can save someone's life. It requires very little from us. Hopefully you have a skilled phlebotomist who doesn't leave you bruised. I've been bruised on a few occasions, but to be sore for a day or two after giving blood, and most times I'm not sore at all, is the least that you can, when you think about the inconvenience of that versus the possibility of saving someone's life, I don't know how it could even compare. And when my husband was sick with leukemia, we did a bone marrow drive. It was quite an expensive process back then to become a bone marrow donor. And so we raised a lot of money. There were a lot of people in our community who were so supportive, and we raised a lot of money, and we were able to add 350 people to the bone marrow registry. And that is a huge thing, to be able to donate bone marrow. And that's a little bit more than a needle prick for blood, but still, I've heard that it leaves you feeling like maybe you fell on some ice and you bruised your tailbone a little bit. You might walk a little stiff for a couple of days, but the thought of being able to save someone's life is beyond any inconvenience, at least from my perspective. But you are in another situation that is a situation where people can also save not only a stranger's life, but even your life. And I wonder if you would be willing to share your story about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've since May 2016, I've been challenged with chronic kidney disease, and I've been on dialysis since then. And early in my experience, it was very challenging. It was very challenging. And one of the things that I did was I delve into getting information. I wanted to know all that I could because, and again, this kind of relates to what we spoke about earlier. When you are ignorant in an area, it controls your thinking more when you're affected by it. But when you understand it, you can manage it better and manage it differently. So I decided immediately that I wanted a kidney transplant and I wanted a donor. And so I started getting all the information I could regarding that. Being a donor is vital. It is necessary. Many people will tell you, and I'm aware of this, that my dialysis is what's keeping me alive. And it can keep me alive for years to come. However, what people don't understand about kidney disease and other diseases, and I think they're starting to become a little more sensitive to it, is that it can affect you mentally. And so we need people to get donors because everybody can't handle the challenge of being without an organ and looking for an organ donor. So I would like to say organ donorship is possible. If you are alive, you can live, and I laugh about it now because I hear it all the time, but it's kind of humorous to me. But you can live with one kidney. So if you have 2 kidneys, you can donate one to someone that needs it, someone that desires it. There's also a program where you can donate, if you have a loved one that you'd like to donate a kidney to, as I've had this done in my life, a loved one who wanted to donate a kidney, but they aren't a match for you. You can donate a kidney to this cause, and they may be able to get a kidney from somebody else who also donated to the cause. And it's kind of like a swap, a kidney swap. And you can do that as well. There's a ton of information available for you at any kidney transplant facility. And you can call and get additional information. But I wanted to let you know it's vitally important because there are hundreds of thousands of people who are just waiting. The kidney wait for many, particularly here in Illinois, can be up to 8 years. And as I mentioned earlier, yeah, the dialysis machine does its job, but mentally, people may not make it 8 years. So I would just encourage each and every one of you, please, please do your research and strongly consider being a kidney donor.
Thank you for sharing that, Sylvester. I know I tried to become a kidney donor for Sylvester, and I'm not going to lie, this is probably the most inconvenience that could occur in the life of donation, right? It's not your blood, it's not your bone marrow. It's surgery, and you have a kidney removed. That's a big deal. But the way that I looked at it was, if I were walking along a beach with 2 life preservers in my hands, and I'm walking on the beach, I don't need one, and someone is drowning out in the ocean and I can see them drowning, I'm not going to keep walking with my 2 life preservers because maybe I'll need it in the future. I'm going to throw one of my life preservers to someone else. And those of you who are listening may wonder, okay, so why does Sylvester still need a kidney? I went through all of the testing, and the testing is copious. There's a lot of testing that goes on every part of your body that has nothing to do with your kidneys that I know about. They wanted to test. And with me, they found 3 minor issues that by themselves would have no bearing whatsoever on whether or not I could donate a kidney. But taken together, they felt I was at too high risk and the doctors would not allow me to donate a kidney. So that might happen to you. But I also want to say there's one final thing that you could do, and that's become an organ donor after death. That is something you can do, anyone can do. Just have it, at least in the state of Illinois, it's something that's put on your driver's license. I don't know if that's through all 50 states, but at least that is something that you can do. You don't need your organs after you're gone. You can give life. And that's what this April Donate Life Awareness is all about. And I wanted to do a little quick piece on that. So I hope that what we've talked about today, of all the many topics, I feel like we've been all around the block with it, but it's all geared toward the topic of awareness, difference, and inclusion. So Sylvester, I really want to thank you for being with us and see if you have any final words you'd like to say.
Well, thank you for having me. Say hello to your mom.
I
I
will.
appreciate the opportunity to share, everything that we've discussed, and I too feel like we've discussed a lot. And I just hope hearing this, somebody takes it to heart, whether it's organ donorship or understanding the importance of inclusion and culture and diversity. Whatever it is, understand that these words that we've shared are important to us as a society. And I hope that people allow these messages to marinate for a while and act on them.
Thank you. And thanks for listening.
All right.